Welcome back to day 39 and 40 of my Dreams RPG series. Today we're creating a new enemy, the rock scorpion creeper crawler thing, name work in progress. Specifically, I'll be rigging it, animating it, giving it AI, and adding sounds, the whole shebang. So let's get into it. We start off day 39 with greyboxing the monster's limbs. I wasn't entirely sure what I was going for with this. All I knew was that it would be made of rocks and that it had a long neck. I found a monster thing on eBay of all places and used that as inspiration. It ended up having the base of a Minecraft creeper and the head and neck of the inspiration. And as you can see, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. I like this. The next step is to do the rigging, which is basically connecting the limbs with joints. It was pretty easy, but something notable is that I decided not to use joints on the neck. Every joint not used is thermosaved, and it ended up working out. The thermosaved was completely worth the added inconvenience when animating. The next step is to add in the enemy template to the element, but I'm pretty sure my brain shut off in this moment or something because I remixed it instead. I remixed the enemy template. It's an issue because the whole point of adding it in is so I can update it in the future with anything I add. I blame chat. Now we get to do some animation. I like to make the idle animation first, and that's what I did here, because all the other animations start from the idle animation, so it just makes sense to start with the idle animation. It's pretty much the animation that plays when no other animation is playing, so when it's just standing still. It was pretty easy to make, and I think it turned out pretty well. Okay. I like it. It's good. Next up is the walking animation, which plays when the character's moving. Even though it has 4 legs, it was actually really easy to animate since the legs only had 1 joint each. To save on thermal, I also decided not to lift the legs when animating. I figured that the enemy would be so small that it wouldn't even matter. And this is what the first attempt looked like. Okay. It's subtle, but it's definitely better. The legs were exactly what I was going for, but the neck just felt really off. Chat suggested I make the neck bob up and down instead of left and right, and that made a huge difference. In hindsight, it's obviously what I should have done the first time, but this is the first time I've animated something like this, so I guess I'll cut myself some slack. Anyway, here is the final result. This is great. Oh Lord, I love it. So when coming up with this enemy, I knew I wanted it to be ranged. But since these enemies all have their limbs connected with the evil purple mist stuff, you'll know what I'm talking about if you've seen the log enemy video. I thought, what if instead of shooting a missile, its head was the missile? Basically like a ranged headbutt. So that's exactly what I did. The fact that the neck wasn't jointed did make this slightly more annoying to animate, but here's what I came up with. There we go. I wasn't done yet though. Since this is a ranged attack, it needed to work at different ranges, not just at max range. I was able to do this by first separating the head and neck animation from the body animation. After that, all I had to do was change the power of the head and neck timeline. It sounds really simple, and it is, but it's the first time I've ever needed to do this at all, and it worked perfectly first try. I do not get to say that often. So that could be melee. Point 2. And then as they get farther away, we can dynamically make strengthen the animation. That's awesome. Up next was the death animation. I really love how easy it is to create a ragdoll death animation for these type of enemies. Not really ragdoll, it's more of breaking into a bunch of pieces animation. All I do is destroy the joints and make the pieces movable and collidable, and then it just works. So here's what that looks like. And let's try it. There you go. I love it when Piece of Craft offers to animate what I'm animating. He does such an amazing job, and his animations are so clean. All right. Ooh, you angled it forward. I like that. Okay, let's try the walking. Yo, you're so good. What the hell? Your animations have so much character. Holy shit. Oh yeah, the rotation of the leg. Yeah, see you did the leg. So okay, I made a conscious choice not to make the legs go up and then down. I just made forward and backwards. What's up? Your painting. My paint. Oh my gosh. What? Thank you. Wow. And finally, we get to the spawn animation. The idea for this one is that all the rocks that make up this enemy start in like a pile and then join together and form the enemy when it spawns in. Even though the legs are jointed, by holding L1 before animating, I'm able to animate as if the joints aren't even there. With this animation finished, we were done with animations as well as the stream. All right, there you go. On to day 2 of the new enemy. I have no idea what to call it, so if you have any ideas, let me know in the comments. The first thing I worked on was finishing the attack animation. We had a working animation that scaled, but it didn't deal damage. So I needed to make a scaling health modifier to match the attack animation. It's important because the attack animation has a dynamic size, so the health modifier should as well. Putting a health modifier on the head that didn't scale, that just followed the head around, could have also worked, but it has the potential to cause bugs. For example, damage not being dealt when it should have. Look at that. The attack is perfectly scaling with the hitbox. It was finally time to start working on the AI, specifically the part that chases the player. Because this enemy was ranged, I thought it would be cool for it to kite away if the player got too close. Implementing this was pretty straightforward. It's just a follower and then a fleer, otherwise known as a follower set to flee. Preventing the enemies from not just grouping up, but like stacking on top of each other was slightly more difficult compared to the tree enemy because these enemies move forward and backwards, so there's an additional way for them to stack up. I ended up basically just doing the exact same solution I did for the tree enemy, but twice. So we have one raycast that points forward, and it's checking if there are enemies in front of it while it's chasing, and if there are, it makes the enemy stop, right? And then I did the same thing for fleeing. So I had a second raycast pointing backwards, and when it's fleeing and the raycast hits something, it stops. So this is what it looked like. It ended up working really well. I'm pretty happy with this. So these are, oh, this is pretty cool. So notice how they're not like, I mean, they kind of are clumping together, but not really. Remember when I said we were finishing the attack animation? Well, I was lying. Now we are finishing the attack animation. The final thing, not including like sounds and stuff, was to make the attack range actually change depending on how far the player is. After all this work making the attack range dynamic, we actually get to put it to use. I use a raycast that detects friends and is always pointing at the player tag to get the distance from the enemy to the player. Then I just hook it up to an attack range slider. I use a signal manipulator to make sure the range scales properly, and it ends up working really well. Let's see if the attack actually scales. So it's max, that's expected, and if we bring it closer, its attack is getting shorter. Look at that. At this point, we were finally ready to test it in the scene. So here's what that looked like. I don't have a player tag. Well, at least they take damage. Hey! Oh, yes, it works. And then they back up. That was great. Wait, I can't even attack them. Oh my god. Come back here. These are so annoying. They're so tiny. They don't even damage me anymore. Okay, there we go. So scaling them down messed up the health modifier size. I mean, this was the plan, to make them this size. They're definitely slower. In hindsight, I really should have been working on the enemy's logic at the correct scale instead of giant versions. Because scaling them down to the size I wanted caused a ton of issues that I had to fix. The main ones being the movement speed was now too slow, the attack range was too low, attacks were just straight up missing, and the damage numbers were really tiny. Another thing I changed was actually making the kite range larger. So before I had them kite kind of like half of their max attack range, and I changed it to basically make it so they kite as far back as possible while still being able to attack. This makes them more annoying, but that's what I was going for, to be honest, and I really, really like how they turned out. So here's what it looks like after fixing all of these issues. Of course, except the damage numbers, because I just completely forgot to change that. That looks better already. Nice. Okay. I like how the health bar is small because the enemy's small, but I feel like the damage numbers shouldn't be so small, right? Because like I can't even read them. But yeah, I mean, it looks pretty dang good to me. And now it's time for the final touches, sounds and hit animations. It is so important to have satisfying sounds in games in general. It really just makes the game it feels so much better to play with satisfying sounds. So what sounds did I need? I wanted a quick dirt footstep kind of sound for the walk, a whooshing sound for the attack, a body blow, body impact sound for when the attack hits, a rock plus evil kind of sound for when they spawn in, a rock sound for when you land an attack on them, and a rock crumbling sound when they're killed. I also added an animation for when the rock enemy and the log enemy get when they take damage. I really don't know why I didn't do this sooner. It makes the combat feel a lot better. The feedback feels really good as a player. If you want to support this channel and this project, consider joining. I'm offering some pretty cool stuff, so feel free to check it out. The button's to the left of the sub button. Anyway, here is the final result. I'm extremely happy with how this turned out, and I can't wait for Ghost Fruit to make it look awesome. I mean, it does look awesome right now, obviously, but you know what I mean. I really hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Oh, the damage numbers. Get them back here. Ooh, that's so much better. Okay. This is crazy, I love it. The little rock scorpions have the AI, I love it. I love how they kite you. And they have animations. They're looking really good. It's looking really, really good. This is just footage right now for the end of the video. I'm not going to be talking in the end of the video. I'm not going to be using sound from this footage.